The panel, when we throw this into the project, is actually much, much more narrow than this, but it shouldn't matter because there's nothing horizontally that would prevent this panel from becoming skinnier. So I'm going to go ahead and save this to my desktop, and we'll call it gallery panel, and this is going to end up being the bottom of the gallery panels. Now, just to make sure that we don't have any strange things happen, I'm not actually going to load this panel that I just created. I'm going to load the panel that I created ahead of time because I know for a fact that that one works. And so what I'm going to do is load the panels that I created previously. And so I'm going to go to Insert, Load Family, to my desktop, Dropbox, Exercise 6 and 7, Completed Curtain Panels. And I'm going to load all of these gallery panels, all 4 of them. You can see there's 4 different gallery panels. And say open. There we go. And so all 4 of those panels are now loaded. And so we'll go to level 2. And we're going to create another curtain wall. And so we're going to take this base curtain panel wall and we're going to duplicate it. And we're going to call this gallery wall bottom. And then in here we're going to tell it to use the gallery panel bottom panel, which is this guy. Now the spacing between these is much more narrow, so I'm just going to make it 2 feet. And then we will place these guys in here. And it actually goes all the way out to this end right here. I'm on the 2nd level. And there is the panel. Now there's one difference between this panel and the panel that I just created. This one has much more stuff in it. So I'm going to show you what this one has that's extra from the other one, and that is this part that extends out. Now you can see everything else is the same that we just created in the other panel. It has the fasteners, it has the glass extension and all that. This part right here is how it connects back to the curtain wall below. So this piece right here, the base panel from the level below, touches this. And so this glass piece right here is actually a glass that's in the floor of essentially the envelope of the building. And so this is that overlap. So the base panel comes up to this point, and then this is how it overlaps. And so when it goes into the project, the way that it looks in 3D is like this. Now let's cut a section through there and make sure that it's properly located. And so the floor is getting in the way here, so I'm just going to click on those things and say hide in view. So it's not quite in the right spot, so I'm going to click the wall and just use the move command and slide it back that 1 inch. And so now you can see that this glass sort of skylight-ish thing is now properly connected. It's a little difficult to see, but it's properly connected to the panel below. Now another thing about this is that the end panels here are different than all the rest of the panels in the middle, and that's why I created another panel, which if I scroll down here to curtain panels, you can see I created one that's called Gallery Panel Bottom End. That's the panel that goes into the end. So let's open that up and see what it looks like. So it's essentially the same thing as the panel that we just created, except it just has the one vertical mullion on the side, and then it has this void cut out. So it just has these little fin parts that stick out, and then there's no mullion on this side. So essentially what the design of this curtain wall does is it has this overlap and this sort of fin that just sticks out here in space along the bottom, and then on the side it just has this piece of glass that just extends out, and there's no building or anything, no enclosed space behind it. And then the only other difference is the fastener on this side just connects back to the building like so. So all of that is relatively easy to do. All you have to do is take the original gallery panel bottom, delete one side of the mullion, put a void in here that cuts out this sort of meaty part of the horizontal mullion, and then add another fastener in the same position but one that's straight. And then of course delete the skylight portion and just have this arm that goes back. But once you do that, what you're going to do is go back into the modern wing model, and if I go to the 3D view, what you're going to do is split this wall. And using the split tool, you go to modify, split, and I'm just going to click a spot here and split it in two. And then we're going to create another wall type, duplicate, and this is going to be called bottom end. And then we swap it out for that bottom end panel. And it's going the wrong direction. And this goes back to what I was originally talking about how you draw the wall can determine what is left and what is right. Well, to flip this panel around, all I have to do is flip the wall around, like so. Now it flips the panel out and backwards, but all we have to do is use this flip tool right here, and now I can move this back into position. Let's move it out away from that wall. Well, actually, this is one of those unfortunate things. See how this curtain panel is stuck to this solid wall? So rather than moving it, I'm actually going to copy it out and then delete this one. Otherwise, this other solid wall is just going to stick to it and cause all kinds of problems. And so for this one, I always want the panel to just be one width panel wide. So I'm going to say edit panel, and then for the vertical layout, we're going to say none. So this is always just going to be one panel wide and tall. And then we move this guy you move that into place, and I didn't split it in exactly the right spot, but you get the idea. And then we go back to the 3D view, and now that's what that looks like. So now we have an end panel that's different from all the rest, and you do the same thing on the other side. I'm just going to skip ahead to the completed modern wing project and show you what the completed wall looks like and explain how I finished it. So let's save this file, close this. And so this is what it looks like when it's done in all three bays. So let's right click on one of these trees, say hide and view by category. So this is what it looks like. So essentially what I did is what I described before. This is one panel, this is one wall that is just one panel tall and one panel wide for the two ends. And then it has all the regular panels in the middle. And then up here, these panels are actually very, very similar to the panels down below, except essentially they're sort of upside down. So because they're similar but pretty radically different in terms of where things are and all that kind of stuff, I just made it as a completely separate independent panel. And what I did is I took the bottom panel and then basically took the 1 mullion off down here, and then took everything that was down here at the bottom and basically just moved it up to the top. Now, it was kind of a tricky kind of surgery to do on the panel, but I managed to do it without, having to completely redesign and rebuild the entire panel. I just kind of shifted things around and made sure all the reference planes moved with it. And so you end up with a panel like this that has the extension of the glass at the top instead of at the bottom. And then I just basically created a wall using that particular curtain panel for the top. And then I created an end panel version of the top, as you can see here, and then put that into place in one bay. And then actually what I did is I put all of that into a group and then just copied that group over into the other two bays. And so now if any changes have to be made to this, I just edit the group. I edit, whatever needs to be edited, and then click finish, and the other two bays update because these three bays are exactly identical. And like I said, that's a pretty complicated curtain panel, but as long as you map these things out ahead of time, and usually when I create a complicated curtain panel like this, I will sketch everything out by hand. I will sketch with, a pencil or a pen. I will sketch out the elevation of the panel, and I will sketch out the plan of the panel, and I will draw all the dimensions in the sketch, what I think they need to be, before I actually go into Revit. Because if you go into Revit not knowing what you're doing and just kind of randomly start building stuff, it's kind of going to be a disaster. You kind of have to have a little bit of a plan of attack in order to efficiently build these things. So I highly recommend that you sketch something out by hand first, so at least you have a guide of where you think you're going to go, and then it makes building the curtain panels much easier down the road. And with that, I think that covers curtain panels and curtain wall design in Revit.